Okay, so hello and welcome to RBCM at Home Summer. RBCM Home Summer is an extension of our regular RBCM at Home, RBCM at Home Kids, and RBCM at Outside programs. This is the last week of our summer programming, but we look forward to connecting with you all in the fall as we continue to build out our online offerings. But consider a few weeks off as an opportunity to check out our Royal BC Museum YouTube page, where you can find all of our sessions over this last year, and there's a lot of them. So my name is Chris O'Connor, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. The museum and my home is on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking people, the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, here in Victoria on Vancouver Island. I'm an uninvited guest on this territory and grateful to live, learn, and raise a family on this land. So I love being a museum educator. I love working in museums. Mostly. I say mostly because museums are colonial institutions and traditionally have not been inclusive in their narrative building, in the stories they present within the galleries and within their collections. Changing this history of practice is not a choice, it's a necessity if museums are to continue. And really, it's just the right thing to do anyway. And as far as I'm concerned, cannot happen quick enough. But diversifying narratives takes time, requires trust, and cannot be sustained without meaningful relationship building. The histories and stories from within what we call British Columbia are dynamically diverse, and those stories need to be envisioned, crafted, and told from within community, not from outside of community, period. So an exhibition that opens on Saturday here at the museum, I hope fits into this new model. Hope Meets Action, Echoes Through the Black Continuum was co-created with the BC Black History Awareness Society, designed by Rodney Hazard, a designer out of Brooklyn, New York, and written and curated by our guest today, Josh Robertson. So,
greetings.
Welcome, Josh. We're so
Thank
glad
you
that
very
you're
much. Here. Yes, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about you?
Sure. Yeah,
and like a little bit about your history.
Yeah, my name's Joshua T. Robertson, and I'm first of all like to also acknowledge that I'm on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Coast Salish people, and yeah, a little bit about myself. I am a founding board member and comms director of Hogan's Alley Society, an organization out of Vancouver, BC. Focused on the redress of the displacement of the Black community here, and really a recentering and rehubbing of all the tremendous culture that we have here and has been systematically alienated and oppressed in some ways. So I did that. On this exhibit, I'm proud to be the curator and writer, and really, I think in some ways a connective tissue for the community and the collective consciousness and histories that we have here. So that's been an exciting thing. I'm of Jamaican and Scottish descent. You can see here some of my ancestors behind me, and I'm very proud, and I hold and bring those ancestors with me everywhere I go. I guess they bring me there. So I'm grateful to be here and excited. I should also mention that I also am some of my background, which I think has helped feed into some of the work that we've been doing, has been as a musician and a creative, and I'm hoping to continue some of my, hopefully people will engage with some of my writing in a creative way and an engaging way at this exhibition, and hopefully today as well.
Yeah, totally. So, and the exhibition it opens on Saturday, and it will be up till the beginning of March. So lots of time for people to come see it and connect with it and creatively respond to it. So, so we started on this project, Josh, about, it was last fall that it started, with the museum reaching out and connecting with the BC Black History Awareness Society, starting to envision what this might be. And then you started toward the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. Do you want to talk a little bit about that early part of the process, and especially how important it was to connect out with community in a meaningful way?
Definitely. I think that I can maybe start with the fact that what underlies what an incredible process that we did have of having this exhibition be community led in terms of its topics of themes, and the engagement, which really informed what I did, and in fact inspired me to in much of the work. The reality is that the Black history in BC has been whitewashed and erased. I didn't learn it growing up. And the thing is, when you start to uncover the layers, you find quite a rich history. We have James Douglas, who was had his own dealings with his racial identity, but he was he became the first governor of the colony of British Columbia. And this is someone who's a foundational figure of our, at least a colonial construction of our province, and someone who had his own dealings with the Black community and his own balances that he was going back and forth. But all that to say that there was a history untold here, or at least untold through from our voice as Black people. So from that, it was imperative to engage the community to really hear about, something like this that has been erased is not a purely theoretical exhibition. It has a political motive, whether we intend it or not, in a white settler colonial setting and context. A Black history exhibition in a space that has not shown this exhibition or this history in this from the Black or from not a white gaze is inherently political. So from there, we needed to make sure we rooted ourselves, or at least I was, as you said, I brought it in. So I want to give a lot of credence to the Royal BC Museum, as well as the Black History Awareness Society, about engaging the community. And so I came in, and the first time that I actually met anyone was at a community engagement meeting in which, I had to say a lot of my work here in Vancouver around Hogan's Alley Society and kind of the political activism here and diving into that history. I did a lot of community engagements to inform so many of the things that we're doing here to try and decolonize these spaces. And these similar themes have echoed through those engagements, whether it was previously when I did things like a parks board engagement, where I would engage the Black community to design parks, or the Northeast Falls Creek plan, where we also design spaces. You tend to hear, what happens here over years is you hear these themes of a forgotten history, an erase, a displacement of our belonging here. And so when we turned down to the process, the thing that really made me excited about this project was, among other things, was that we did engage community, that I got the first day to hear about what people wanted and needed. And not only that, what a rich history that we are bringing, that can really bring such a strength to our society here, and bring a layering to our understanding of what this context is, especially for people of color. And I think one of the things was creating belonging stood out from the very beginning. And these people's histories, as they tell you, we had these engagements where we described a museum of you and what we saw in there. And I talked about my ancestors here, and you can see my great grandfather there from Jamaica, and just to hear everyone else's stories and how they came here, and to hear the themes start to prop up, it elevated this exhibition and elevated the history to create a contemporary call and response and echo through the Black Continuum, you could say, to really bring in some of these histories and create a living history because one of the things about British Columbia history is it's the foundation of, at least, the colonial history, is one where Black bodies came here and to establish themselves against a context in which they were both needed for a time and later later engaged in a process of white settler expansion and colonialism, in which they experienced discrimination, but still asserted not only their own Black lives and community, but established and contributed in significant ways. So yeah, I think that it's interesting for me in that process to hear these same things being brought out, and maybe now I can turn to some of those if you allow me to some of that framework. Chris, does that sound good? Yeah. So
sorry, I was muted. Yeah, absolutely. And also I was thinking, just in terms of that theme of echo and that across time, that often, I mean, you've spoken about this a lot, that and others as well, that museums are often, the kind of downfall of museums often is that the history is something that's like in the past. And it's easy to sort of think of something as in the past, but not how it resonates and how the threads of those movements are echoing within us and around us in the present and into the future. So what I'm hearing from you is that those first community dialogue sessions really started to cement some of those issues of wanting both to honor this the erasure of the past, but also the present dynamicness of the present and going into the future.
Most definitely. I think that you hit right on the nose there, that we really did start to hear this kind of echo when you can look to a history, and I hope this is successful in the exhibit, or I'm quite confident of it. Entering, for example, the pocket gallery space, we have, to give a little hint of what's coming up this Saturday, of course, at the opening, running until March, we have a contemporary echo. And when you can hear a theme and experience that a Black person has, when I grew up here, as I grew up here in Vancouver, when I would see a Black person, a mixed person on the street, I would wonder what their life was. How did they navigate these waters? And what you find when you read is you hear your experience. Some of the ailments as well as the positive aspects of living in society are brought out when you read accounts of historical accounts. And so what we wanted to do now, what I heard in those engagements was this echoing, was this connection to a past history and creating a living history, as you're pointing out. So yeah, I think that wasn't a very exciting and appealing part of this that process. And as you said, important in this process of history creating or retelling, especially from a museum as such, is to root itself in community and to inform itself at a base level and be accountable, I think, to community. So.
So out of those discussions, then you created this framework of how this exhibition might be, like the ideas of the exhibition forwarded through a framework. Do you want to now go into a little bit of what that framework is?
For sure. So again, I think I touched on some of it, but yeah, I think for me as the curator writer, it was important to make sure in this process that we are not creating the same systems of violence that occur, or at least erasure and whitewashing occur in history creating and retelling some of these stories. What I heard, what I think we all heard in those engagements, was that there was this longing for belonging. As Black people, we are often asked where do we come from, or an assumptions that we're not from here, or an exotification of our existence here that suggests that we, are still somewhat, lacking belonging, or feeling some type of alienation in some type of, or being made to be a spectacle in our own homes. So when I heard that, I thought I need to create a framework in which, when we know the history of the Black spectacle and how that has played out in art and in museums, and some of the retelling of our history, we need to make sure that we actively were creating a history that could combat that, that history, or that political influence on our history. So to do that, I created a document that could lead all of our processes, or at least I hope, and I think it has. And maybe I can run through some of that, which is that, I really started with the why. Why is this important? And I found that it was to combat the whitewashing and erasure of Black Canadians through the celebration of the richness and diversity of our history and contributions, positively asserting a historical Black British Columbia, Black continuity in the Black continuum, the sustained existence of Black community and culture here in BC, which is a reality, but not told as such. And I think one of the things is, quite a political thing in the news today is critical race theory. But one of the key elements from critical race theory that I think was important for this discussion was to use the counter storytelling narrative. There's been a certain narrative told about our history, and we need to actively tell it from our perspective. And some of that is a heavy usage of experiential based knowledge and personal narrative. You know, and then I turned to who is this for? And this might be a bit controversial, but at the end of the day, when you know, someone who grew up here and didn't read about any of this history growing up, it was important that we establish for ourselves. And, you know, most of history has been for someone else. The telling, the accounting has not been favoring our people. So we primarily want to make sure that it was kind of a FUBU thing. It was for us, by us, and then from there, we can create a holistic belonging here, cultural healing in that process, authentically speak to and from Black people, from which we can welcome the greater community. And I think really be authentic in that and not compromising. Of course, with this type of work and with the history that we do have, I want to note that, you know, it was important for me for us not to focus on just discrimination, on just anti-Black racism. There's a rich history here. There's a lot of contribution and incredible people, and focusing on that, I think was, you know, I don't think anyone wanted a exhibition on just pure racism. So, you know, but part of that is that there is a history of racism and a deep emotional connection that people will be having with this exhibit, especially as Black people. So, you know, that's where we came up with Hope Meets Action, which is empowering. We want people to be recognized in that space, Black people, and have a sense of belonging, an assertion of our presence, our identity, daylighting Blackness, being seen, understood, valued. And so, you know, I really finally decided, well, what's a success for this event? And it's a proclamation of our history, the value of our history, establishing our ongoing contributions, communicating a nuanced and diverse history, complex histories located in real arcs of communities and individuals. I think also trying to create a sense of belonging, pride, kinship amongst Black Canadians, because as a diaspora, we feel these connections, and understanding them in a historical manner can really empower that. And I think also here was the realization, reckoning, and welcoming of non-Black Canadians. We want to welcome the greater community, and we think that they will, I'm quite sure that they'll be amazed, not only amazed, but just proud of Black Canadians when they see this exhibit, and proud that they are kin with them as Canadians, and that these people are part of our community. And you know, from there, I think we can have more healing and more understanding. And then lastly, I think, you know, I could keep going on, but I don't want to.
No, it's great.
I'll just do a couple more points about that, which was that, you know, these are just kind of some foundational interpretations I had as a curator and writer. I had to, you know, or chose to, or wanted to interpret this history in a way that it hadn't been before, from a decolonial Black lens. And though that involves some of the same things we're talking about in terms of positive assertions of our belonging identity against erasure. And that to me equaled Black prosperity, which was a theme that we heard in the engagements. Diversity of identities. People come from all across the Black diaspora here, and have a diversity of identities, but have a common linkages across that diaspora. Ancestral call and responses we talked about with the history, and hearing that in our living history. And I have to say, for example, we have a clip, a voicemail message from China Jones in the Pocket Gallery, who is the creator of the Black and Rural Project. And hearing some of her accounts of her experience as a Black and rural person today in BC mirrored some of the accounts that we read historically on frontier towns and continue to, and kind of the role that Black bodies play in those towns, but also the experience they have on being on the frontier of Western colonial expansion. And in a dual role as someone who is, as colonized people, as stolen people and stolen land, trying to create space, looking to this place as a potential place of liberty and freedom, and asserting their liberty and freedom there, and often being pushed back, but still asserting themselves, and that being a victory, and that being an incredible story. So you know, the key words of decoloniality that I used for this exhibit were to revert the white gaze, to decenter whiteness in our history, subverting racial and social hierarchy, power dynamics, and the representation of Black bodies, just to be considerate of the history. So in all of that to say in regards to decoloniality, that inherently in this society, being that it has been a deeply colonial and white settler society, the history, as we know, the history is written by the so-called winners, and we haven't had our history told outside of the white gaze in many of the predominant spaces. And so that was a real emphasis to locate some of these greater themes in the everyday experiences and stories of everyday people.
And it seems like also when that sort of organic process happened, that what was clear is that the pocket gallery with a certain amount of space for panels wasn't enough to begin to tell the stories that you were wanting to bring forward, that everyone wanted to bring forward. So
Definitely.
the exhibition extends out into the lobby space of the museum as well, and I'm really happy about that, because the stories could fill the entire museum.
Yeah, I was about to say.
But at least for now,
yeah.
It expanded in a way that allowed for a lot more of what you're talking about.
I think that was an exciting moment. I want to jump in and allow myself to plug that. In the future, I'm looking forward to the expansion of these, some of the things I'm exploring, where we are exploring here, and I think that as everyone enters this exhibition, they'll be quite interested to see a larger representation in the future. Not only, but as you said, we already started inching out. I guess the richness of this history is bleeding out in some ways into the other areas of the museum, and we saw that from the expansion from the pocket gallery into the Clifford Carl Hall. So I'm very excited, and one of the things I think that the audience and viewers will be able to experience is an immersive experience. You can head into the pocket gallery and engage with some of the objects there, but also hear voicemail message from the past and the present, speaking to these themes that you're engaging with. Enter out that space and look at the backlit panels where we're going over, and maybe we can turn to that. Some of the Hogan's Alleys, the arc of Hogan's Alley, and some of the contemporary history, and I've left a couple hidden nuggets in there around. There's some interviews and some more things that I think people aren't might be hidden in little corners that are actually quite expansive. So
we have about 5 minutes, and I think that's a good time to look at some of the panels. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen for everyone to see. This is our learning portal here at the museum, which has lots of great content, and we just put up a new pathway around the exhibition, Hope Meets Action pathway. And then if you go to the read section here, then you see these are the exhibition panels. So even if you're not able to make it to Victoria, you can still take part in the exhibition. And but I'm going to go to the look section, which is images. So these are some of the images that are part of the exhibition, but particularly these images that will be part of a backlit panel wall around Hogan's Alley. So Josh, just let me know. I'll start with the first one, but if you want me to go through, just let me know when you want me to advance.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in the interest of time, maybe we won't get to everything, but I think even these images here and this panel kind of already establishing a history people are unaware of. As you can see here, that's the images from the AME Church in Hogan's Alley. The chapel was established in 1921, as we can see there, and it was a linchpin for the Black Strathcona neighborhood. As you can see,
because there might be, sorry, Josh, there might be some people that haven't heard about Hogan's Alley before, so this might be an introduction to them. Do you have just like a quick description of what Hogan's Alley was?
So as noted before, I was a founding, I founded the Hogan's Alley Society, which meant that redressing some of the displacement that happened. So what happened was the Black porters, which were porters that worked on the railways, were often Black. The porters were that's one of the best jobs at the time that you could get as a Black person. And they came up from the States as well as other places like Jamaica, and worked quite extensively and were quite important actually in Canada's federacy or Canada's union, I should say, and establishing a cross-Canadian kind of infrastructure. But beyond that, Vancouver was the last line on the railway, and so they would stay here and they start to create a community. And what happened was, as Black people came to Vancouver, migrating from places like Texas after slavery and after the intensification of laws, anti-Black laws in certain places, and tried to find refuge in different places, they settled in Vancouver's Hogan's Alley and Strathcona neighborhood because of a multitude of systemic barriers for them finding housing anywhere else. What happened there was that a vibrant community existed against all odds, with people like Louis Armstrong coming to the city and being unable to be allowed into the Hotel Vancouver and going down to buy a chicken shop to eat and to stay, because even incredible members like that were not allowed into the more white dominated spaces. So from there, the city of Vancouver partnered with the Canadian Mortgage Housing and various other interests to actually displace that community, to create a viaduct, which is something that happened all across North America in Black communities, and followed the consistent strategy there to displace Black communities that were thriving. And yeah, so that's kind of the history. And so in this exhibit, we see here, Nora Hendricks, the grandmother to Jimi Hendrix. And we see across this, I should also note, murals that depict some of this longing and history, but as also this rich history. So here, Nora Hendricks, who was a staple of that community. Also, we'll have her speaking in the Pocket Gallery in some of her interviews. And if we go to the next slide, perhaps. This is a really interesting, this is a Porter's Club. And we see here, quite a little tidbit there that I hope people see here is, you can see up to left that there is in the Vancouver, I think it was either the province of the Sun, quite a racist depiction of a raid on the Porter's Club. And that's something that I appreciate Rodney doing. As you see on the left, we have Sammy Davis Jr. with Vise and some of the Hogan's Alley Black community members on a night in the town of Vancouver, kind of clowning or being a joke. If you see there, he has a gun and he's doing kind of a joke. He's an actor and he's doing kind of and what we want to do is kind of the satirical pull at these racist tropes that were going on at the time, which led to a raid on the Porter's Club there, and a kind of a commentary, because as we see above that, we see all these fantastic Black businesses thriving. That one's from Victoria, but we can see, and if we could go to the next slide, some of the so here we have the destruction and displacement, and this is kind of the arc. We had this vibrant community and this racism starting to build up, and the city of Vancouver, the Canadian Mortgage Housing, completely erased this community. And then maybe just the last slide and we can, yeah. And so here we have the Hogan's Alley revival blockade, which, something I'm still proud of this today, that the community came together in that manner to try and assert itself and block the blocks around Hogan's Alley, and were violently removed by police last year. And here we see, quite a beautiful mural. I will say I oversaw the artist call for this, and it's at Nora Hendricks Place, a temporary modular housing here in Vancouver that's Black prioritized, the first of its kind. And this is a mural there, which kind of speaks to what this movement currently is, to revitalize, to strengthen our community, to create a hub, and to assert ourselves again. So I'm hoping that this exhibit can play a part in that. And here we see the future. This is again another project that I was deeply involved in. This is part of the Northeast Falls Creek plan. It was a rendering of a Hogan's Alley working group where we worked together to try and design a more equitable and just future for Black people in the city of Vancouver, hoping to send the rest of British Columbia, as we unfortunately are quite a fragmented community as a result of our displacement.
So all of those panels will be backlit in a wall, which I can't wait to see. It'll be tomorrow, probably, that it goes up, but we officially open the exhibition on Saturday. if anyone is out there and wanting to see, we're going to live stream the opening on Saturday from 11 to 12. So you can go to our Facebook page, Royal BC Museum Facebook page, and we'll be live streaming that. And I also just wanted to mention, I mentioned it at the beginning, and you mentioned it once or twice, Josh, as well, but the design is of Rodney Hazard out of Brooklyn, New York, who will be coming up and for the opening as well. And I really appreciated just being the witness to your process together. It seemed like sometimes in museum exhibitions, there's the writer, and there's a designer, and there could be like, but the two of you really worked closely together and integrated your practices into each other's practices, and so it's not only thoughtfully expressed and like powerfully said, the exhibition, it's also beautifully rendered, just like a beautiful exhibition.
I agree.
Too, so.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. And thanks to Rodney, who's a great graphic designer and multimedia artist.
Mm-hmm. All right, so can't wait to see it on Saturday. Everyone,
Very
please,
excited. Yes.
please come and check it out. It's in the ground floor of the museum. After Saturday, you can come and check it out. Yeah, thanks so much, Josh, for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and then please come check out the exhibition.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.